Hello, my name is Darius Nabors, and I'm a 2007 graduate of the College of Arts and Sciences. And I'll be taking you guys on a virtual tour of Grand Canyon National Park on a rafting trip that I did in November of 2019. I have some other national park swag behind me. One of my buddies, another 2007 college grad, Kyle Rosinski, sent me these sweet posters. So this is Grand Teton, and this is Yosemite. And then this is actually all of my junior ranger badges from all of the national parks. In 2016, I finished a trip to visit all 59 of the U.S. national parks on the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. So I think I can at least give you a good background of knowledge of the national parks. And so today I'm going to be taking you again on a virtual tour. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see what that looks like. And let's see if that works. All right. So first of all, again, thanks to the Alumni Association for letting me do this. And then my virtual tours will be up on my website, so you're more than welcome to check them out there or follow along. It's just 5959.com/virtual tours. And then the first one right here is Grand Canyon National Park. There's a bunch of other tours. You can look at them by park, or you can kind of scroll down and see some other ones as you want. So we'll click on the Grand Canyon one. It will take us to this page. And so you can either look at the tour in the website here and it'll scroll around, or you can click on this top left box right over here. And that will take you to a place that you can look at it in full screen. So I'm gonna go a little quick through some of these because I wanna make sure and leave some time for question and answer. So this is called Lee's Ferry, and it's where you start most of your Grand Canyon rafting trips. So in this part, we're setting up our rafts to get them on the river and fill them up with our gear. The next one, you're gonna actually see a photo that's up from this top cliff over here, and it's overlooking it. So this is where we start, and then we're gonna go down the river this way. So you can see all of our boats, and then this is all the stuff that we have to put in these boats. So we have coolers, all of our gear, all of the oars, and then our crew as well. Our stove is this metal thing right here. And so you can see us kind of set everything in it. And then this next picture, we're gonna be up here on this cliff. So this is called the Spencer Trail. That little dot is where we put our boats in, and then that's downriver. So we're gonna go 225 miles downriver. There's a trail that kind of zigzags back and forth up this, and you can see a little bit where the river runs. This is right at sunrise. I like hiking up here at sunrise before I do a rafting trip to kind of get a view of what it looks like. So you launch down the river, and then that's your home for the next 3 weeks. So we got our boats loaded. You have to do a ranger talk. So the rangers talk to you about safety and keeping the environment clean and things like that. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that as we keep going. This is our first major rapid. So it's called Soap Creek Rapid, and it's 11 miles down the river. Here's the folks scouting the rapid. And basically when you're scouting a rapid, you're looking at the water and you're saying, like, what are the elements in the water that could be dangerous? And what are the safest ways for us to go down the river so that we cannot flip our boat? The other thing that you're gonna notice in the first part of these tours is that this water is really clear. That's gonna change. As it rains, all of the side canyons have water coming down the side canyons. They pick up dirt from the bottom, and then that dirt travels into the river and it turns this like chocolate milk brown color. But at the beginning of our trip, there'd been a 3-month drought prior to that. And so there's this really bright, clear, beautiful water that you see. So this is called Soap Creek Rapid, Soap Creek Rapid. It used to not be a big rapid, but there was a big rainfall and it spat out a bunch of rocks from this side canyon. And then when it spits the rocks out down here, it makes for some tricky elements in the water. So in this rapid, we could actually sit pretty close to the water to scout it. It's not gonna be the case in all of them. This is North Canyon. So as you're going down the river, there's all of these canyons that come into the Grand Canyon, and you can go and hike up them. And so this is one of them, and we're going hiking up this canyon, and there's like trees that are changing leaves. You can see all these different layers of rock. there's different little plants growing. And we hiked just up to past here. I've been here when this is full. There's actually a little bat that was flying around here eating insects when we were there. So it's kind of a cool view to really see these layers of rock and just kind of stand and look at them. This next one's called Silver Grotto, and it's a really, really thin canyon. So they sometimes call it Shiver Grotto because it's so cold. And so you don't really get much sunlight in there. So it's super, super chilly. So we got to this little pool that we were walking up. We all have on dry suits. And so basically there's like a gasket on the neck right here. And then there's a gasket on the arms. And other than that, the only thing that's going to get wet is your head and your hands, and everything else will stay dry. So you're kind of in this protective suit. You have to be careful when you're kind of scrambling around on rocks like this, because if you get a hole or a tear in it and you get in the water, then that's going to fill up inside of it. So you're dry, but it still is, pretty cold weather while you're there. And you can even, you can look up and see how thin this canyon is. And the Colorado River is just down this, so we'd actually had to scramble and climb up here to get here. And again, you can see the water's clear. They actually were going to dam this part of the river. And so you can see the dam tunnels. I want to say it was the 1920s or the 1930s. So you can see the dam tunnels here, what they look like. I have another view of them later. This is a place called Redwall Cavern. It's a common stop for lunch. So you can see the blue boats up there. I stopped a little bit early so I could give you a view. So you can see how small the cavern looks in comparison to the height of the Grand Canyon. And I'll spin you around real quick. This was my boat for most of the trip. It's called a ducky, and it's just a small inflatable kayak. So I was cruising around in that thing, but you can see the height of the walls. They're just, you have to look all the way up. And, this tiny little cavern in comparison to the walls, this is what it looks like when you're up at it. It's not really a tiny cavern. It's a huge cavern. And all these 360 photos, one of the downsides is if somebody moves, you might see them a couple times on the photo, so that's the same person. But this is where we stopped for lunch and played Frisbee. And it's just this massive cavern. Basically, when the water was higher, it carved in through here. And that's kind of how you get that big overhang. And this was our setup. There's a blue kayak, a green kayak, a red kayak, and my ducky. And then we had 5 boats, as well as a paddleboard that we inflated some of the times. So there's 15 of us on the trip, and those are our vehicles to go down the trip. And this is our lunch spot. I want to say it was our 2nd or 3rd day. Here's the dam site. This tunnel went back 300 yards. So 3 football field lengths. And so we walked all the way back in. These dam sites used to be closed, and they recently opened them up. So you could still see some tools there, and you could go all the way back in, which was super creepy to be 300 yards deep in the rock. And, it felt totally safe and normal. And this is kind of overlooking that, so you can still see the waters that super, super, almost looking green, not even a blue at this point. This is probably one of the most photographed spots for people that are rafting the Grand Canyon. So you can see this big bend in the river. The other thing that you can see is these different layers of rocks, and the different colors will tell you that it's from a different geologic time. So you can see these layers throughout the entire trip, and you're actually gradually going down over time. So you're seeing different layers reveal themselves. And as you come around this big bend, it opens up to a big straightaway. So you've probably seen this photo of the Grand Canyon before at the Nanqueek Granaries. So you can stand up and see it kind of go down. Our camp is down here. You can just see the boats. And at night it was green. We woke up in the morning and the water was totally muddy and brown. So the rest of the trip it was brown. And the reason it's called the Nanqueek Granaries is about 1,000 years ago, there is some ancestral Puebloans that lived in this valley, and they kept their grain up in these cliffs. And so they built these little granaries that you're going to see. And so there's these little kind of adobe mud storage places, and they put the grain up there to keep it away from animals and keep it safe. So you can hike up here, and there's a little trail that kind of zigzags back and forth and goes back to camp before you continue down the river. This is a little side canyon hike. I like showing this photo because it just shows that, you know, you have fall happening, and this is one of those side canyons that leads down to the river. So we went and hiked up that side canyon. Some of them I'm going to go through a little quickly, but you will have the tours so you can have access to kind of check these out a little bit more by yourself. This is the confluence of the Little Colorado River. So I'm actually going to go this way. So this is the Little Colorado, and it's this super vivid blue color, and that's from this mineral called travertine. And so there's travertine, which lays out a white color of calcium carbonate. And so it lays out a white bed on the river bed, and then the water running over that reflects off of the white bed. And so that's, you get this vivid blue color. And then it comes and meets the Colorado. And so like I told you, the Colorado turned, you know, chocolate milk brown. So this is the Colorado meeting the Little Colorado. And there's this stark line where you can see where the confluence happens. So we parked our boats just up here off the shore. We'd come from this way. We were going to continue down this way, but we stopped here for lunch. And I'll show you what the Little Colorado looks like. So this is it, and it's, you know, it's just this bright, vivid blue color. And so you can, you know, we went up to the sun and sat in the sun and had lunch. You can see our crew kind of sitting up there. And then it comes down. There's the sun popping out. And it's really, I mean, as you can see, it's pretty hard to take a bad photograph. I don't think I'm a good photographer as much as I just, you know, stand in the right place at the right time. So this is the Little Colorado. The next is one of the big rapids, Hance. And so not all scouts make it easy to see the exact rapid. But Hance is the first really big rapid on the river. And this is probably 1/4 to 1/2 of a mile down this. And so, you know, we're standing there and we're looking at the water and we're like, okay, we want to enter the rapid here, and we want to slowly move this way down the rapid. You can kind of see there's like parts where there's more violent water and there's rocks. Generally, you want to avoid the rocks and the violent water. So, you know, we're like, let's aim this way. Let's avoid this violent water. Let's avoid that rock and kind of scoot this way. I totally ate it in the ducky, probably right around here. Fell out of the ducky, and they had to catch my ducky, and I swam to the shore because I lost my ducky, which is not what you want to do. But I swam to the shore, they grabbed the ducky, and then I hopped back in and continued on down the river. This is Phantom Ranch. So there is one spot on the river where it's really easy to exchange passengers. And so this is another group, all these yellow boats is another group. And basically you have people hike down from the rim, they bring their stuff down, they come meet you at Phantom Ranch, and then they continue on the trip. Or you have people that can only go for half the trip, so they get out at Phantom Ranch and go up. It's about 96 miles from Lee's Ferry, where we started, to Phantom Ranch. So then like another 130 after that to continue. Right after Phantom Ranch, it's just a series of big rapid. So it's a really kind of scary day because you have these huge rapids, all of which could flip your boat. And keep in mind, these boats are 14 to 16 feet long, and they weigh several thousand pounds. So when you're in a boat that weighs several thousand pounds that can get flipped by the water, it's pretty big water. So this is the first really big one. It's called Horn. And again, you can't really get close on the Scout. So we leave our boats right here, and then we're looking at the river, and we're again saying like, okay, we want to go here. We'd usually send the kayaks down first, and the kayaks would go down first so that they could kind of serve as safety boats. And then if somebody falls out of a boat, or if a boat gets flipped over, a kayaker can go catch the boat so that it doesn't go down river, or they can catch the people that fall out of them. In addition to wearing the dry suits, we absolutely every time have a personal flotation device on. So you can see that personal flotation device, dry suit, personal flotation device, dry suit. So everybody was wearing those 100% of the time down the river, not something that you play around with, just something you always have on, and it's just normal standard operating procedure. So that's Horn. The next one that comes like 2 miles after Horn is Granite. And Granite's a super long rapid. Again, you can't really get a good view of it. There's this side right here, which is the side that you don't want to go down. You want to go to this far side. And so we went down this far side, and it's just like a bumpy roller coaster ride, again, for like half a mile. So that's as close as you can get to Granite. This next one's Hermit. And Hermit, these are 8 to 10 foot waves. So as tall as a basketball hoop. And so this one you can actually get close to, so you can get a good view of what it looks like. And we actually camped just above Hermit, so we actually spent the night right up here. And then in the morning, we ran Hermit. And then this one is Crystal. I'm gonna pause right here. So you enter the rapid up here, and you can't even see the end of it. It goes super far down here. And this is the only place on the trip where we flipped a boat. And basically the boat, there's this wall right here, and the boat, here's the wall, and the boat hit up against the wall. All the water started pushing against the boat like this, and it started pushing, and then just flipped it. So we had several boats that were down water, and you basically go through these big rapids, and once you make it safely through, you're looking back to make sure that your team makes it. And so we look back, one of our boats flips. There were 2 people in the boat, so we're basically like, where are the people? Let's make sure we snag them first. So you get the people out of the water, and then that's when our kayaks went and chased down the boat. They grabbed the boat, and they basically, you have a bow line and a stern line. And so you're grabbing onto those lines to make sure that the boat doesn't go further down water. And then you have to pull the boat to the side and flip over a 2,000-pound boat, which is tricky. So there was basically 5 of us. We hooked up some ropes onto the rigging of the boat, and then we stood on the boat, pulled it, and then jumped in the water, and then the boat rights itself. So it's pretty intense, takes 45 minutes or an hour to do, so you don't want to flip them often. If you've read The Emerald Mile, this is the Rapid of Fame. It got to be a really big rapid in the 60s and in the 80s, when the dams almost overtopped themselves. This was a 30-foot explosion wave. So imagine a wave that's 30 feet high in the sky. And so this is where we kind of scouted from. The other great thing is that you can do all these side hikes, and the only way to get to a lot of these places is by being in the canyon. So this trail goes this way, zigzags up, and gets on this ridge right here. And then our camp is on the opposite side. You can see just the tip of the Colorado River right there. And then there's this little side canyon that comes through. So we continued on this trail, and then it loops actually around over here, and you can get back to our camp on this far side. But as you go down the canyon, it kind of flattens out, and you get to the river level. You can see the river and all of the trees along the way. So it flattens out, and we actually hiked up to this side, almost up to that guy, and then hiked back down, and then back around to our camp. So there's all these great side hikes that you can see only from the canyon. This next is Elves Chasm, another cool spot to jump in on the water. Blacktail Canyon, if there's any geology nerds on the tour this morning, this is where you see the great unconformity. And so there's a 1 billion year gap in the rock record. And so basically there's this rock stacked on other rocks, and there's 1 billion years where they're expecting this other rock to be there and it's not. So they call it a great unconformity, because you have one kind of piece of rock jutting up and coming into another piece of rock. And this is exactly where that happens, at that spot. Deer Creek Falls is another classic spot that people stop. And so there's this huge waterfall. The river's literally right here. And so you just get to stop and see this massive waterfall. There's a little hike. basically around this, and you kind of zigzag up and back this side. And then you can get to the top of that waterfall. So the waterfall's down this, probably a quarter mile, that you get to see Deer Creek, which leads into that. And so there's just these beautiful, beautiful side canyon hikes that you get to experience while you're down in the Grand. This is called Pancho's Kitchen. This is where we camped one night. So we set up all of our boats, and then you pull out your kitchen, you pull out your stove, you pull out your sleeping bag, your sleeping pad, everything. And so this is kind of where you set up camp. So this is, you can see all the footprints. This is, you know, where we lived for 3 weeks. So, you know, these were the places that we camped, and the places that we stayed, cooked dinner, slept under the stars. This is Matt Cat Canyon. And you can see all these crazy layers of rock. And there's no trail, you just follow the water and hike up as far as you can, and then eat lunch and hike back down and get back to your boats and head further down the river, in this case to Havasu. Again, you can see that bright kind of blue color from the travertine. Lava Falls is one of the more famous rapids on the trip. It's the big rapid that everybody talks about, that a lot of boats flip on. We all ran cleanly through lava, which was nice. There's just, I mean, this doesn't look big from up here, but if you go on YouTube and look up Lava Falls, Grand Canyon, you will see how big, how powerful, and how astounding this water can really be. This is Perishant Camp. So this is one of our later camps in the trip, and I wanted to show this so I can give you a sense of what camp would look like. So I have my tent set up in case it rained. I could jump in my tent, have my rain fly up. And then I had my sleeping bag, my pillow, my sleeping pad. I had a little blanket that I kind of like laid out just to keep my stuff dry. So I'd like take my shoes and socks off here. These are my river shoes. And then these are all dry bags. So all of my stuff is in dry bags, so it's not getting wet. So I had 3 different dry bags, and then my dry suit is kind of draped over here. And then I just had a jacket that I was drying out. So that's where I lived for that night. And it's right next to the river. The boats are right here. And then the kitchen area was right here. So you just, you know, there's these little paths that you can walk through to get to camp. Pumpkin Spring was a lunch spot that we stopped. So this is the spring actually right here. Not one that you want to get into because it does have arsenic in it. And this is where we just stopped for lunch on, I think, our second to last day. This is where we got out at Diamond Creek. And so it's kind of our last chance to be on the river. And so you can see, you know, the chocolate milk color. You can see how the rocks kind of change. You don't have those stacks of rock. It kind of starts to thin out a little bit as you get closer and closer to the end. You don't have to get out at Diamond Creek. You can go to Grand Wash Cliffs, which is 50 miles further downriver. But the water gets a little bit slower, and there's not as many big rapids. So a lot of people elect to get out here. And we had the outfitter came and picked us up. So we had all of our oars, all of the stuff for the boats. Those little things rolled up there are the boats. So they're big inflatable boats that squeeze down pretty small. That's our whole crew. That's all of our stuff. And then those are the coolers that had ice in them for the entire trip. So that's the really quick, 32 slide, 21-day trip rafting down the Grand Canyon. I am going to stick on the call and answer any questions that you have. So thank you again for tuning in on this Tuesday morning, and let me know what questions you have.